Today I'm talking with Annalee Kruger. She is a long-time, 30-year veteran of helping families navigate all the complexities of aging. And it begins very early on, and I'm going to let her talk a little bit about what she does, but unlike most people, she is proactive, not reactive. So she wants to meet you before it's too late. So Annalee, why don't you talk a little bit more about what you do, and we'll take it from there.
Perfect. Well, Michael, thank you for having me on your podcast. I really appreciate you taking the time to just have some everyday dialogue about what it's really like as you age and as dementia progresses, and how that impacts families and relationships, and families who are traveling or live across the street from the care recipient. All of these topics we're going to talk about in this brief podcast impact every single family. Just a little bit of background. I was a social worker and executive director in CCRCs, continuing care retirement communities that have all the different levels of care. I did that for over 22 years, and every single day I had families in my office because they got the call from the discharge planner at the hospital that says, here's a list of nursing facilities, go find one by noon tomorrow because we're discharging your loved one. And the kids were like, oh my gosh, my mom just got to the hospital. She just had a broken hip or a stroke, and the hospital's already booting them out. And so the kids would show up at the care community with their dad, who likely had dementia. And they're like, we have no idea what questions to ask or what to look for during the tour. Medicare and Medicaid are the same thing, that Medicare was going to pay for everything, and they didn't understand my dad's dementia was so bad and why he behaves the way he does, and they think that assisted living is the same as nursing home. And so in 2011, I decided to leave corporate America, start my own family caregiver, senior care, dementia progression, and end-of-life consultancy, working with families all across the globe, leveraging Skype, because that's what we had back then. And so what I do is I facilitate family meetings, find out what's working well, what's not working well. While I love that in your intro you said that I'm proactive, but the market is not. Meaning that most families find themselves just really quickly thrust into the role of care decisions and caregiving, and they find out how quickly overwhelming that can be, and how expensive it is, and how ill-prepared they were for these aging years. Meaning, most of them don't understand what their care options are. They don't understand how expensive care is. They don't have their estate documents in order, so now they're shelling out attorney fees at a crisis rate because parents didn't have their estate documents in order, and everything is just kind of a snowball of a mess. And so we help untangle all of that and help them understand how to navigate and how to make informed decisions via one of our plan packages.
Wow. So that rings true to me, because in my family history, we have a child who went through recovery. And unlike the elderly comparison, he was a teenager, but the caregiving responsibilities mirror each other dramatically. So after we put him through what we were hoping would be his last place, and we would just simply return ourselves back to normal if we just spent the right money and found the right place. Basically, when they called to pick him up and they asked me, what's your care plan? I go, I don't know, you tell me. Well, that's not our job, but you have to take him anyway. And we realized very quickly that one, we were not prepared for this. We do not understand the options. I guess the equivalent of someone like you in the addiction space would be what we call an educational consultant, where they do all the research for it. The other thing I learned was I was fooling myself and thinking that one massive payment to the right place was going to solve this problem. In fact, it was just one of many. And we learned very quickly that we were not planning for this. We were just reacting to it. And without a plan, the money just keeps going out and out, but the situation tends to get worse and worse. So I completely understand where you're going through, and that's why I think the two of us really gelled together, is because I understand the numbers, right? You know, it's great that people want to avail yourself of all the services that you provide, but there are mistakes that can be made, and maybe you'll share from your experiences some of the things that you've seen.
Oh, for sure. Families make a lot of mistakes because they don't know what they don't know. They tend to go by what neighbor Joe did with his mom. So they're like, well, this is what we did with my mom. And so my prospect, the family that I'm trying to say, hey, let's work together and do things the right way the first time. So a lot of mistakes families make are they get thrust into caregiving and care decisions because they think they have more time. So one thing is denial. They think that they have more time to make some decisions and figure out what to do with mom and dad, or as a family, we'll figure it out. Well, guess what? All the people who had major strokes last Thursday didn't wake up thinking, oh, I think I'm going to have a major stroke today. But yet thousands of people did. And that's what thrust people into this like chaos and crisis. They also, other mistakes they make, they've never really understood what their loved one has. So like you are an addiction expert, right? Because you've had personal experience with it. So you're like the expert in that. So you understand that. But a lot of families that we work with, their loved one has dementia. And it seems like, and it's a failure on our healthcare model. But these families will get this diagnosis, or this patient will get a diagnosis. Well, you have frontal lobe, temporal dementia or vascular dementia, and it's like okay,
Bruce Willis.
Right. And they'll be like, good luck to you. And then the families are like, oh, yeah, okay, well, I guess we have a lot of time to figure out what to do because they said it's going to be a gradual disease. Well, guess what? You have time until you don't. And so then when they come to me, they're overwhelmed because they're taking care of mom and dad in some fashion. And they're spending 20, 30, 40 hours a week or more in angst, worry, care coordination, care advocacy, checking on their parents, delivering meds, delivering food, whatever it is. They've thrust into the caregiving role. They're ill prepared for it. Not everybody wants to take care of someone because maybe that's a bad relationship, or they weren't treated well as a child, and now they're taking care of their dad who maybe was abusive. And not everybody has a personality to be a caregiver. There's some people that's just not the way they roll. That's not their personality. And that's okay, but it's not okay when you get thrust into caregiving and you find yourself in over your head very quickly, because that's what happens. Other mistakes families make because they don't know what they don't know. That's why I do tons of these types of podcasts and webinars. And if you Google Annalee Kruger, Care Rights Inc., I am all over the internet in a way that makes my parents proud. But I have like tons of free information out there to say, look, things are going to go okay until they aren't. So denial, again, is when I meet with families and they're like, well, we don't really need to put a plan together because mom and dad are doing okay right now. That's the perfect time to put the plan in place, because right now is when you're getting along better than you ever will. And your loved one will have the best care options when you plan ahead, versus choosing to wait until you're in crisis mode and none of you are getting along. Everyone is fighting. Everybody's not at their best. And now you've got a very, very vulnerable adult who just had a stroke or their dementia progressed, and they need care. And the landscape of senior care is really compromised. It's not a good thing out there right now. We've got a lot of healthcare worker burnout. We've got people that aren't properly trained taking care of very sick, complicated patients, and it's just bad. So that's why families need to work with us. Work with us as a professional to help guide them through this. Other mistakes, and then I'll let you go, are not having their documents in order. When I was an employee in the long-term care sector, and I would ask the kids, do your parents have a living will, power of attorney? What do they have for finances? Like, we never met with a financial advisor, so we don't even know if they have one. Mom and dad have never talked about, anything about power of attorney. They've never talked about a long-term care insurance policy. So there were all these like, I don't knows every time I ask them something. So that's why I started Care Right, is to really help get everything buttoned up and help families make informed decisions. And that's why when I met you, I was like super pumped because I was like, wow, you're in the financial services industry and you're seeing these aging family caregiving addiction issues with the families that you serve. And you've got some unique programs in place to help your clients be as successful as possible in the stage of journey of life that they're in right now too. And I would love to learn even more about what you're doing too.
So thank you for that. There's so many things that you touched on that I dovetail completely into my world as well, complementing. So let's start with the issue of denial.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's denial. Sometimes it's just a bias we have. There's a particular one that comes to mind, and I just recently did a video on it. It's called ambiguity bias. What that means is, faced with a set of decisions of which you have no idea what the consequences may be, we tend to stay with what's going on right now versus undertaking a new course that we don't fully understand what the ramifications may be. And it's worse because you even know that what you're doing right now isn't right, but you're stuck in trying to transition from doing what's needed. And that is sometimes just hardwired. So it's not always even denial, right? It's just, and this is where I use my behavioral finance and the surveys that I use to help them understand exactly what that means. The second thing I've noticed, and I think you touched upon this too, is people who think they plan, they tend to really underestimate the costs associated with things like addiction and dementia. And the advisors that they seek generally fall into the category of, A, they don't know enough about what it is, and two, they lump healthcare expenses at the same rate of inflation as general inflation, when in fact, healthcare expenses, certainly in end of life, tend to way outpace inflation. And if you're looking for specialized care like cognitive and I'm sorry, I'm stumbling over the word, but cognitive care, that's even higher. And so people are taught in retirement by most advisors that you go through this curve, right, where you retire and you're spending a lot because you're going traveling and what have you. And then it falls off because you've done all the traveling, you don't play as much golf anymore, you're not as mobile, and you kind of sit here. And then when you pass away, you have to have your estate in order. And what they miss is it does go up and it does go down, but more cases than not, it goes way up at the very end. The last 10% of your life, you are spending way more money on healthcare and things like you provide, and they don't plan for it. And so they think they're okay, but they're not.
Right. And the problem is that because consumers assume that Medicare or Medicaid, because they think that they're the same program, and they are woefully not at all. Like, one's a state program, one's a federal program with totally different criteria. So when people assume that someone else is footing the bill for care, they don't plan like they maybe would have if they were like, oh, if I have to start budgeting $30,000 a month for one companion 24/7 care because dad had a stroke or mom's dementia progressed. My clients that are aging in place at home are shelling out $30,000, $60,000, $70,000 per month in companion care, because that's how much it costs when you need 24/7 care and multiple companions coming in. And most of the advisors that I meet with, they're still budgeting 30 year ago at home, because I'm like, well, how much do you budget in your financial plan for your clients for 24/7 care? The number is $5,800. Every single advisor I've talked to in the last decade, that's the number that they're using. And at some point, these families are going to wake up and say, wow, mom needs care, but you budgeted $5,800 a month, and it's actually like 35 grand because we need 24/7 companions, but we also need a $150 an hour geriatric care manager to set up meds and coordinate doctor's appointments and all this kind of stuff. And how come the financial plan is so woefully under budgeted for senior care? And so that's why, again, when I met you, I was like hugging you over Zoom because I'm like, wow, someone in the financial services who gets it and who cares. And that's why we work so great together, and families that we would work with together mutually have the best of both worlds, your financial expertise and my aging, caregiving, dementia, senior care, end of life expertise. It's a great package.
Wow. Well, we can talk forever, but I see we're running out of time. So if you had to wrap it up in one word or one takeaway for the audience, what would you want them to say here?
I would say if this hit home for you, where you have aging parents or you're a family caregiver or you're touched by dementia, we really need to talk sooner rather than later, because I promise you things will unfold much faster than what you realize. I offer a free 30-minute Zoom consult to just hear what your situation is and how I can help you, and how I can help you get your lives back on track and help make sure that your loved one has the best care possible. So that would be the takeaway. The call to action is, if any of this conversation hit home and maybe scared you a little bit, my contact information is carerightinc.com. It's my website, carerightinc.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn under Annalee Kruger, LinkedIn. So you can reach out to me, or it's easier to just go through my website.
So with that, I'll leave you. My closing thought is when you're stuck and you need to get unstuck, it's best, to know what financial burden you're about to take on. B, make sure that you consider all the factors. It's not just taking care of your loved one, but you have to take care of yourself. I've seen too many times where people overspend because they think they have enough without being really grounded in reality. And if this resonates with you and you either have a financial plan, but you're not sure that it's proper because it doesn't reflect your new reality, or you just don't have a financial plan and you want to get started, reach out to me. My name is Michael Lewis. You can find our website at www.familylegacync.com. I am also on LinkedIn. I think it's Michael Lewis, CFA, MBA, but please reach out to either one of us. We work really well together. And let me tell you, the one last thought, and I know I'm running on, is there's a tendency for people who want to do this on their own. They just feel like it's their burden to bear, and that they're either too ashamed to admit to get help or too proud to accept it. I think the worst thing that anybody can do is traverse this journey on their own. So get the professional help that you need and deserve.
Well, and then I promise I'll let you go. But when people feel like they can do this on their own because maybe that's their culture, or they're like, well, I'm just giving back to my parents. They were great parents for me. So this is now just part of that life journey where I have to give up my whole life to help take care of your parents. There's nothing wrong with taking care of yourself and setting some, like, okay, we need to bring in more supports and more care, because I promise you, none of us, not one person, can take care of all of the needs and help that our aging parents will need at some point. So there's no shame in taking care of yourself. And part of self-care is putting a plan in place so that you can enjoy the last few years of your parents' lives, instead of thinking that you're overwhelmed, burned out, angry, resentful, and it's impacted your career, your business, and your finances and your marriage. So let's not let it snowball to that point. Let's talk now.
Amen to that, Annalee.
Amen.
With that, we're gonna sign off. We have much more we could have covered, and maybe we'll have the opportunity to do that again soon. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Very good. Thank you.